There the cosmic balance of the three realms teeters on the edge of a blade within the royal palace. Ichibe Hosube, the leader of the royal guard and the man who gives name to all things in the Soul Society, believes he has finally secured a victory that will echo through eternity. Using his absolute mastery over conceptual ink, he has stripped the king of the Quincy of his identity, reducing him to the insignificance of a black ant. To ensure this threat is erased from existence, Ichibe casts a multi-century mausoleum, a ritual intended to strike the king's soul from the cycle of rebirth. But as the dark ink settles, the silent ticking of a 900-year prophecy finally reaches its end. Ywhach opens his eyes, and the world shudders. Within those eyes, multiple pupils swirl the mark of the Almighty. This is not merely a power of sight, it is the power to see every possible future, and to reach into those futures to reshape the present. Anything Ywhach sees becomes unable to harm him, and his conceptual erasure is undone in an instant. In a terrifying display of omnipotence, the black ant becomes a god once more, and with a single overwhelming surge of spiritual pressure, he vaporizes Ichibe's entire torso, leaving the monk's remains scattered across the palace floor, as the royal guard's hold on the sanctum collapses. The fall of the royal guard's leader sends a shockwave through the dimensions, but for Ichigo Kurosaki and his companions, the horror is only beginning. As they crash land their elevator into the inner sanctum, they find the gruesome aftermath of the battle. However, Ichibe manages one last miracle from beyond the threshold of death. By whispering the monk's name, Ichigo provides him with a fraction of his own spiritual energy, allowing Ichibe to use the power of names to stitch his shattered body back together. Gasping for air, the monk names Ichigo humanity's final hope and pleads with him to rush to the throne room. He warns that the Soul King, the linchpin of all existence, is the only thing preventing the three worlds from dissolving into a primordial sea of chaos. There, as Ichigo sprints up the stairs, he is struck by a legendary vision, a glimpse into a time eons ago when the Soul King, originally known as Adonis, used a ceremonial blade to split the world into the three realms before being mutilated, bound, and sealed away by the ancestors of the Shinigami. When Ichigo finally breaches the throne room, he finds Ywhach standing before the crystalline prison of the Soul King. Ywhach mocks Ichigo, claiming that the future has already been written and that every path leading to victory has been erased. Refusing to succumb to despair, Ichigo draws his dual Zangetsu blades and launches a fierce assault. He manages to catch the Quincy King with a Getsuga Tensho, slamming him into the divine hot springs, and follows up with a massive Getsuga Jujisho that shatters Ywhach's defensive barrier. For a heartbeat, it seems the hybrid warrior might actually succeed, but the script flips once again. Ywhach stands uninjured, revealing that he had been fighting with the Almighty, deactivated simply to gauge Ichigo's growth. Once his multiple pupils lock onto the present, the fight becomes a slaughter. He teleports behind Ichigo's attacks with effortless grace, eventually grabbing him by the face and blasting him through the floors of the palace. While Ichigo lies broken, Ywhach explains the tragic truth. Adonis foresaw the extinction of the Quincy 1,000 years ago and chose to abandon them, leaving them to be slaughtered by the Shinigami's force stabilization system. The situation reaches its most desperate point when Ichigo sees the Soul King impaled by Ywhach's sword. Acting on instinct, Ichigo rushes to pull the blade free to save the deity. This is the exact moment the trap snaps shut. The Quincy blood in Ichigo's veins, his Blut vein hijacks his nervous system. Ywhach reveals that the game was rigged from the very beginning. He needed a perfect hybrid of human, Shinigami, Quincy, Fullbringer, and Hollow to execute the Soul King. Powerless to stop his own hand, Ichigo is compelled to swing the blade, slicing the Soul King clean in half. This execution triggers a massive explosion of energy, and existence itself begins to dissolve into nothingness. Orihime Inoue desperately tries to use her Soten Kishin to reverse the damage, but her power fails against the divine magnitude of the collapse. In the laboratory below, Yushiro Ukitake steps forward to offer his life as a countermeasure. He reveals a vertical eye on his back, the mark of the forbidden Kamikaki ritual. Ukitake shares the secret he has carried since he was 3 years old. He was dying of an incurable lung disease until his parents prayed to Mimihagi, the literal right hand of the Soul King that governs stagnation and stillness. Ukitake offers his entire body and soul, and a massive shadow hand shoots into the sky, wrapping around the severed halves of the Soul King to temporarily halt the collapse of reality. Because Mimihagi is a piece of the Soul King, it exists as a total blind spot to Yhwach's almighty, causing his multiple pupils to crack under the strain of a future he cannot foresee. Knowing this stabilization is temporary, Shunsui Kyoraku descends into the abyss of Mukin to release Sosuke Aizen. Even bound to a chair that compresses his spiritual pressure, Aizen is so powerful that he vaporizes the fingertips of guards and casually crushes the black torrents of energy falling from the heavens. Aizen agrees to join the conflict, because a world under Yhwach would be an oppressive prison. Yhwach eventually bypasses Mimihagi, ripping the right hand off the Soul King and absorbing the deity's essence to become the Holy Newborn, a being covered in a swarm of blinking eyes. He transforms the royal palace into his new fortress, Warwelt. A tense alliance forms between the Gote 13 and betrayed Quincy, who were abandoned by Yhwach's Oswalin. Together, they gather spiritual pressure to open a gateway, aided by the arrival of Grimmjow, Neliel, and the Fullbringers Riruka and Yukio, who use their powers to transport Ichigo's group into the heart of the new palace. During the invasion, Renji Abarai confronts Uryu Ishida. Renji reveals his training under Ichibe, which taught him that his Bankai's true form requires a 20-second energy infusion. He unleashes Zagai Zeo, but Uryu, fueled by the revelation of Soken's journal and the death of his mother Katagiri, counters with precise arrows that punch a hole through Renji's chest. In the streets of Warwelt, Mayuri Kurotsuchi and Kenpachi Zaraki face Pernida Parnkias, the left arm of the Soul King. Pernida's nerves mangle Kenpachi's limbs, forcing Mayuri to paralyze the brute and take the lead. Mayuri counters with a modified Bankai that births a skinless monster with 70,000 layers of skin, making it immune to Pernida's control. However, Nemu Kurotsuchi, Mayuri's 7th-generation masterpiece, sacrifices herself to save her creator, firing an energy blast that vaporizes a Pernida clone before she is blown to pieces. Their Akon reveals the dark history of the project. Iterations 1 to 3 were failures, the 4th was a brain, and the 6th died of decay. Nemu is the culmination of a dream, a soul that grows on its own. Pernida feasts on Nemu's remains, ingesting her pituitary gland, which contains a hyper-accelerated cell division organ unregulated by the brain, leading to Pernida's total cellular collapse and explosion. Simultaneously, Lil Barou, the messenger of God, snipes at Shunsui Kyoraku, forcing him to activate his Bankai, Katen Kyokotsu, Karamatsu Shinju. The Bankai forces both participants into a 4-act tragic play, sharing wounds, incurable disease, drowning in a bottomless abyss, and final decapitation. Shunsui decapitates Lil, but the Quincy regenerates into a golden, owl-like entity. Nanao Ise arrives and accepts her family's sacred, bladeless ritual sword, Shinken Hakioken, which Shunsui had hidden for decades to protect her from a family curse. The sword reflects the power of gods, and with Shunsui's support, Nanao reflects Lil's ultimate judgment back at him, shattering his immortal body into a shower of golden feathers. A deeply personal conflict also erupts between Bazz-b and Jugram Haschwalth. Bazz-b reveals his genius was actually fueled by Haschwalth's rare ability to share strength with those around him, a gift Yhwach eventually claimed. Despite their childhood promise to kill the king, Haschwalth uses his power, the balance, to redirect all misfortune, delivering a fatal slash to Bazz-b, who dies smiling at the memory of their friendship. There, as the season reaches its climax, Gerard Valkyrie transforms into a colossal giant via the miracle, overwhelming the Shinigami. Askin Nak, Levar, paralyzes Ichigo's group with a poison field, but Yorichi and her brother Yushiro intervene with lightning and fire attacks. Askin neutralizes them with his immunity, but Ichigo is healed and rushes toward the final battle. Inside the palace, Haschwalth, holding the Almighty while Yhwach sleeps, confronts Uryu Ishida. Uryu reveals he has been plotting against Yhwach from the inside, motivated by Soken's journal. He hands Ichigo a Sun Gate key, instructing him to defeat the defenseless king, while Uryu stays to fight Haschwalth alone.